Commander Rachel Torres stood on the bridge of the alien cruiser that humans now called Retribution and watched the star system of Alteris surrender without firing a single shot. 6 months had passed since the first human attack, and the war had spread across the galaxy in ways that no one had expected. What had started as humanity fighting for survival had become something much bigger and much more dangerous to the old order. "Ma'am, we are receiving surrender transmissions from all planets in the system," her communications officer reported. "The local species is requesting protection under human authority." Rachel looked at the tactical display that showed 17 star systems now under human control. Each system had been won not through destruction, but through liberation. Species that lived there had welcomed human forces as saviors rather than conquerors, and that made all the difference in how the war was being fought. "How many species have asked to join our alliance now?" Rachel asked. 43 different civilizations have requested membership in what they are calling the Human Liberation Front, came the reply. More are sending diplomatic messages every day. This was what the Galactic Council had never expected when they tried to relocate one troublesome species to an isolated planet. They thought they were solving a problem by getting rid of humans, but instead, they had created something that threatened their entire system of control. The galaxy was discovering that humans were not just effective warriors, but also generous liberators who offered something the Council never had. Dr. Lisa Carter was now the chief science officer for the growing alliance, and she worked from a massive space station that had been built in the asteroid belt around Earth. The station was home to research teams from dozens of different species who were all working together to advance their understanding of the universe. The scientific progress was happening faster than anyone had believed possible. The Council never understood how cooperation works, Lisa explained during a strategy meeting with Admiral Jake Morrison and the other human leaders. They ruled by keeping species separate and afraid of each other. "We've shown them that when different people work together, everyone becomes stronger." Jake nodded as he studied star charts that showed human-controlled space now covering a third of the galaxy. The war had spread so quickly because every system they liberated became a base for liberating the next system. Species that had been oppressed for generations were eager to fight alongside humans against their former rulers. "They gave us one planet because they thought we would be satisfied with scraps," Jake said. "They never understood that humans don't just fight for themselves. We fight for everyone who deserves to be free." The Galactic Council had tried to respond to the human uprising with overwhelming force, but they discovered that their traditional tactics did not work against this new kind of enemy. When they sent fleets to crush human positions, they found empty space, because humans had evacuated entire populations to safety. When they tried to make examples of rebellious worlds, they found that destroying planets only made more species join the human cause. General Pete Williams was now in charge of military operations across multiple sectors, and he had learned to use the Council's own size against them. The alien government was so large and bureaucratic that they could not respond quickly to human attacks. By the time Council forces arrived to defend a system, humans had already liberated it and moved on to the next target. "The Council keeps fighting the war they expected instead of the war we are actually fighting," Pete explained to his staff officers during a briefing on the captured world of New Harmony. "They think this is about territory and resources, but it is really about ideas. The ideas that humans brought to the galaxy were simple but revolutionary. Every species had the right to govern itself. Every world had the right to choose its own future. Every individual had the right to live free from oppression. These concepts were so dangerous to the Council's authority that they could not be defeated with weapons alone." Captain Kelly Johnson had been promoted to colonel and was now training liberation forces from dozens of different species. Her training centers on liberated worlds were producing soldiers who fought with human tactics, but brought their own unique abilities to the battlefield. The result was an army unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Humans taught us that strength comes from diversity," said Commander Vexka, a reptilian officer from the recently liberated world of Soros Prime. "The Council tried to make us all the same, but humans showed us that our differences make us stronger when we work together." The Council's control was crumbling faster than their leaders could comprehend. Worlds that had been loyal for thousands, of years were declaring independence and joining the human alliance. Species that had never spoken to each other were now fighting side by side against their common oppressor. The old system of fear and isolation was being replaced by something based on hope and cooperation. Admiral Morrison received daily reports of new victories and new allies, but he knew the hardest fighting was still ahead. The Galactic Council controlled the core worlds where billions of aliens lived and worked. Those systems were heavily defended, and the Council would not give them up without a desperate final battle. They will retreat to their strongest positions and try to make us pay such a high price for victory that we will accept a compromise, Jake told his senior staff during a planning session. They still do not understand that humans do not compromise when freedom is at stake. Dr. Carter had teams working around the clock to analyze captured Council technology and develop new weapons for the final assault on the core systems. The TU Alliance now had access to scientific knowledge from hundreds of different species, and the combination was producing advances that amazed even the scientists working on them. We have gone from one planet to controlling a third of the galaxy in 6 months, Lisa reported. Our industrial capacity is now larger than the Council's, and our technology is advancing faster than theirs. They gave us one world and thought it would contain us, but instead it became the foundation for everything we have built. As the Alliance prepared for the final phase of the war, Jake often thought about the meeting where Zek Nor had offered humanity a single planet as if it were a generous gift. The alien had been so confident in his superiority and so certain that humans would be grateful for whatever scraps they were given. Now, Zek Nor was a prisoner on Earth, waiting to stand trial for crimes against countless species, while humans led the largest liberation army in galactic history. They never understood what they were dealing with, Jake said to Rachel as they planned the assault on the Council's capital system. They thought we were just another primitive species that could be relocated and forgotten. They had no idea that giving us one planet would make us want to free all the planets. The war that had started with humanity fighting for survival had become a galaxy-wide revolution that would determine the future of every species among the stars. The Council had ruled through strength and fear, but humans had shown that there was another way to build a civilization. Soon the old order would fall and something new would take its place. Something based on the simple human belief that everyone deserved the chance to reach for the stars. Colonel Pete Williams lay flat on his stomach in the thick jungle of Kepler 442c and watched the alien ship come down from the sky through the scope of his rifle. The ship was sleek and silver and made no sound as it landed near the human settlement that looked like a poor farming village. Pete had been hiding in these trees for 3 hours waiting for this moment. The aliens came to check on the human colony once every month like clockwork. They always brought the same arrogant attitude and the same assumption that humans were too primitive to be dangerous. Today that assumption was going to cost them everything. "Overwatch, this is ground team," Pete whispered into his radio. "Target is on the ground and moving toward the settlement." 300 light-years away, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the warship Defiance and felt his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment that would decide whether humanity lived as slaves on one planet or fought for freedom across the galaxy. Around him in the darkness between stars waited 200 human warships that the aliens had no idea existed. "All stations, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake announced over the fleet communications system. "Operation Homecoming begins now. Remember, we are not fighting for territory today. We are fighting to prove that humans will never accept a cage." Dr. Alex Turner's breakthrough with shield disruptor technology had led to weapons that could penetrate alien defenses. Human manufacturing had produced missiles and energy weapons that the aliens had never encountered before. Most importantly, human military thinking emphasized surprise and attacking, where the enemy was weakest instead of where they were strongest. On the surface of Kepler 442c, the monthly inspection was beginning exactly as it always did. Zek Nor materialized in a beam of blue light along with 2 alien guards who carried weapons that could kill a human with one shot. The crystal being looked around at the simple wooden buildings and the humans working in the fields with obvious disgust. "Your progress continues to disappoint us," Zek Nor said to Mayor Susan Blake, who was actually a military intelligence officer pretending to be a civilian leader. "After 6 months, you have built only these crude structures and grown barely enough Food to feed your population? Susan kept her face humble and worried like a struggling colonist should look. We are doing our best with what we have, she replied. The soil is difficult and we lost many tools when our transport ship crashed. What Zeknor did not notice was that every farmer working in the fields was actually a trained soldier. The alien also did not see the targeting systems hidden in the trees, or the fact that the crude wooden buildings could quickly convert into fortified bunkers. The settlement had been designed to look primitive while actually being a deadly trap. Pete Williams watched through his scope as the alien inspection team walked deeper into the settlement. His finger rested lightly on the trigger of his weapon, but he waited for the signal from Admiral Morrison, who was commanding both the ground operation and the space battle that was about to begin. In space, the human fleet had moved into position around the nearest Galactic Council military outpost. The aliens had never seen human warships before because humans had built them in secret, using materials mined from asteroids in the outer solar system. The ships looked different from anything the aliens were used to fighting because they had been designed using human tactical thinking. All ships report ready, Commander Ryan Brooks announced from his position at the tactical station. Jake took a deep breath and made the decision that would change galactic history forever. Execute the attack. On Kepler 442c, Pete Williams heard the command in his earpiece and squeezed the trigger of his rifle. The bullet was specially designed with Dr. Turner's shield disruption technology, and it passed right through the alien guard's protective field like it was not even there. At the same moment, every hidden human soldier opened fire on the inspection team. The aliens were completely surprised. Their shields failed, and their superior technology meant nothing when they were outnumbered and surrounded by enemies they had never expected to fight back. Zeknor fell to the ground with 3 bullet wounds before he even understood what was happening. In space, the human fleet unleashed everything they had built during 6 months of secret preparation. Missiles with shield disruptors struck the alien outpost while human warships used tactics the aliens had never encountered. Instead of fighting in straight lines like most species, humans attacked from multiple directions at once and used the asteroids and debris in the system to hide their movements. The Galactic Council outpost had powerful weapons and strong defenses, but they had been designed to fight enemies who attacked in predictable ways. Human tactics were chaotic and unpredictable, and within 2 hours the outpost was destroyed and its defenders were either dead or captured. Jake watched the battle displays on his command bridge and felt a mixture of satisfaction and worry. The surprise attack had worked perfectly, but now humanity was committed to a war against an enemy, with thousands of worlds and millions of ships. There was no going back from this moment. Damage report, he called out. Minimal casualties, sir, Ryan replied. We lost 3 ships and the aliens lost everything. We also captured 2 of their vessels intact. On the planet's surface, Pete Williams and his team secured the crash site where Zeknor's transport had been brought down by human anti-aircraft weapons. The crystal alien was still alive but badly wounded, and his guards were dead. This was the first time humans had ever captured a Galactic Council official alive. Ground team to Overwatch, Pete reported. Package secured. The inspection team is neutralized and we have prisoners for interrogation. Susan Blake walked over to where Zeknor was lying on the ground with human medics treating his wounds. The alien's crystal body had lost its blue glow and was now a dull gray color that, their intelligence briefing said, indicated pain and fear. You cannot do this, Zeknor whispered in his glass-breaking voice. The Council will send fleets to destroy you. You are only one primitive species. Susan smiled down at the alien who had been so arrogant just an hour before. You're right. That we're only one species. But you made a mistake when you tried to put us in a cage. Humans don't do well with cages. The simultaneous attacks on Kepler 442c and the Galactic Council outpost sent shockwaves throughout alien space. Within hours, every species in the galaxy knew that the humans who had been given one planet as a gift had instead declared war on their benefactors. Most aliens thought the humans had gone insane and would be crushed within days. But Jake Morrison knew something the rest of the galaxy did not know yet. This was not a desperate last stand by a doomed species. This was the opening move in a campaign that would free every oppressed world in the galaxy. The aliens had given humanity one planet and expected them to be grateful. Instead, Humans had used that planet as a base to launch the war that would give them everything else. The real fight was just beginning. Jake Morrison stood in the cold metal room of the human ship Unity and watched the alien on the big screen. The creature looked like it was made of blue crystal and stood twice as tall as any human. Its name was Zeknor, and it spoke for something called the Galactic Council. Jake had been a ship captain for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like this before today. The alien pointed at a small planet that spun slowly in the air between them. The planet looked green and blue like Earth, but smaller and darker. Jake could see mountains and oceans on its surface through the magic display that floated above the table. "This world is called Kepler 442c, the alien said in a voice that sounded like breaking glass. "Your people have done well enough in your little solar system. The Council has decided to give you this planet as your new home. You should thank us for this gift." Jake looked at the two other humans in the room with him. Dr. Lisa Carter was Earth's best scientist who studied alien life, and she looked angry. Commander Ryan Brooks ran all the human colonies, and his face was red with rage, but he stayed quiet like Jake had told him to do. "What happens to Earth?" Jake asked in a calm voice, even though his heart was beating fast. "Earth will be given to a better species that can use it properly," Zeknor replied. "Your kind will move to this new world immediately. It has air you can breathe and water you can drink. There are minerals in the ground and land where you can grow food. Everything your simple people need to survive." Dr. Carter leaned forward in her chair. "And if we say no?" The alien's crystal body changed colors from blue to bright red and made a sound like laughing. "Say no? Captain Morrison, your people have only 47 ships that can travel between stars. Your weapons are weak and your technology is like toys compared to ours. You cannot fight us and you cannot hide from us. This is not something you get to choose. This is what will happen." Jake felt his hands make fists under the table, but he kept his face blank. He had learned long ago that showing anger to an enemy was a mistake. The alien kept talking about how generous the Council was being and how lucky humans were to get even one world. Zeknor explained that most primitive species got nothing at all when advanced civilizations needed their planets. "You have 6 months to begin moving your people," the alien continued. "We will send ships to help transport your population. Any humans who remain on Earth after that time will be removed by force." The meeting ended, and the aliens left the human ship without saying goodbye. Jake waited until he was sure they were gone before he spoke to his team. "They think they know everything about us," he said quietly. "Sir?" Ryan asked. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. "They think giving us one planet will make us happy. They think we will just accept this and be grateful." He turned back to face the others. "They have no idea what they just did." Lisa stood up and walked to the display that still showed the planet they were supposed to call home. "Jake, they're right about our ships and weapons. We can't fight them in a normal war." "Who said anything about a normal war?" Jake replied with a small smile that did not look friendly. Within hours, emergency messages went out to every human settlement in the solar system. The message was simple and clear. An alien, government called the Galactic Council, had given humanity an ultimatum. All humans had to leave Earth and move to a single small planet far away. Anyone who refused would be killed or taken by force. Jake knew that most species would probably accept this deal. One planet was better than no planets, and the aliens were clearly much stronger than humans. But Jake also knew something the aliens did not know about his people. Humans had never been good at accepting limits. When someone told them they could only have one of something, humans always found a way to get more. When someone said something was impossible, humans always proved them wrong. When someone tried to put them in a cage, humans always found a way to break free. The aliens thought they were being generous by giving humanity one world instead of just killing them all. What they had really done was give humanity a reason to fight and a place to start planning their revenge. Jake called a meeting with all the top human leaders on Earth. Presidents and generals and scientists came from every country to hear what he had learned. He told them about the aliens and their demand and their threats. "We have 6 months," he said to the room full of worried faces. 6 months before they expect us to be packed and ready to leave Earth forever. 6 months before, they think we'll be grateful for their gift of one small planet in the middle of nowhere. An old general named Bill Turner raised his hand. Captain Morrison, what do you suggest we do? Their technology is far beyond ours. Jake looked around the room at all the smart and powerful people who were waiting for him to give them hope. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to take what they think is impossible and make it happen. They gave us one planet and expect us to be satisfied with that. He paused and let his words sink in before he continued. So we're going to take the rest. Dr. Lisa Carter walked through the underground tunnels deep beneath the mountains in Colorado and felt the weight of the entire world pressing down on her shoulders. 3 months had passed since the aliens gave humanity their ultimatum, and the whole planet was supposed to be getting ready to leave Earth forever. Instead, Lisa was leading the most secret project in human history. The tunnels had been carved out of solid rock and filled with the most advanced laboratories Earth could build. Hundreds of scientists worked day and night trying to understand alien technology from the small amount of information they had gathered during the meeting with Zek Nor. Lisa knew it was not much to work with, but humans had always been good at making something out of nothing. Lisa, you need to come see this right now, called Dr. Alex Turner from across the main laboratory. The young man looked like he had not slept in days, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Lisa walked over to where Alex was standing in front of a wall covered with numbers and drawings that showed energy patterns. She had known Alex since he was a student, and she had never seen him this excited about anything before. What did you find? She asked. They're shields, Alex said, pointing at the display. I've been studying the energy readings we took from their ship, and I think I understand how their protection systems work. It's not magic, Lisa, it's just science that we haven't figured out yet. Alex showed her how the alien shields worked by creating a bubble of energy around their ships. The shields were incredibly strong, but they had one weakness. They needed a specific frequency to stay stable, and if that frequency was disrupted, the shields would fail. I think I can build a device that will break their shields, Alex said. It won't be easy and it will take time, but I think we can do it. Lisa felt hope for the first time in months. If they could break alien shields, then human weapons might actually be able to hurt alien ships. It was the first step toward fighting, back against an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. While Lisa and her team worked on understanding alien technology, other groups of humans were preparing for war in different ways. In a secret training facility built inside an old mine, Master Sergeant Kelly Johnson was creating a new kind of soldier. Kelly had been training human fighters for 20 years, but these new soldiers were different from anything she had ever seen before. They trained in rooms with no gravity to learn how to fight in space. They learned to use weapons that could work in alien environments. Most importantly, they learned to think like humans fighting against enemies who had never faced human tactics before. Listen up, Kelly shouted at her trainees as they practiced fighting in a room that spun around to make them dizzy. The aliens think they know how primitive species fight. They expect us to charge straight at them and try to overpower them. With numbers, they think we're too stupid to use strategy. The soldiers were floating in the air and trying to hit targets while the room spun around them. Most of them were getting sick, but they kept trying anyway because Kelly had taught them that humans never gave up no matter how hard things got. We're going to show them that human tactics are different from anything they've seen before. Kelly continued. We don't fight fair, and we don't fight the way our enemies expect us to fight. We fight to win. In other secret locations around the solar system, human engineers were building new types of spaceships. These ships looked nothing like the exploration vessels that humans had been using to study nearby planets. The new ships were designed for one purpose, which was fighting and winning wars against technologically superior enemies. Jake Morrison had been promoted to admiral and was now in charge of the entire secret military project. He worked from a base built inside the asteroid Ceres, which had been hollowed out and turned into humanity's hidden command center. From there, he could coordinate all the secret preparations without the aliens knowing what humans were really doing. How many ships will we have ready? Jake asked Commander Ryan Brooks during their daily planning meeting. 200 combat vessels within 3 more months, Ryan replied. The Galactic Council still thinks we're peacefully getting ready to move to the planet they gave us. They have no idea we're building a war fleet. Jake nodded and looked at the tactical displays that showed human colonies throughout the solar system. Each colony was secretly contributing to the war effort by building weapons or training soldiers or developing new technologies. The aliens saw only what humans wanted them to see, which was a defeated species preparing to accept their fate. "What about our people on Kepler 442c?" Jake asked. 50,000 volunteers arrived last month, Ryan answered. All of them are military veterans or specialists with important skills. To the aliens, they look like farmers and miners trying to build a simple colony. In reality, they're building fortified positions and scanning the planet for strategic resources. The volunteers on the alien-assigned planet were playing a dangerous game. They had to look like struggling colonists who were barely surviving on their new world while actually preparing for war. They built farms that could quickly be converted to military bases. They mined for minerals while secretly looking for materials that could be used to make weapons. Jake smiled as he thought about how the aliens had made such a big mistake. They thought giving humans one planet would satisfy them, but they did not understand human nature. Humans had never been satisfied with just surviving. Humans wanted to grow and explore and build better lives for their children. The aliens had also made the mistake of underestimating human intelligence. They saw primitive technology and assumed humans were primitive thinkers. They did not realize that humans were incredibly good at solving problems and adapting to new situations. They think they're being generous by giving us one world, Jake said to Ryan. They think we should be grateful that they didn't just kill us all. What they don't understand, Ryan replied, is that they just gave us a reason to fight and a place to start planning our comeback. Jake looked out at the stars through the window of his command center. Somewhere out there was the Galactic Council that thought they had solved the human problem by relocating one troublesome species to an isolated planet. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Humans were coming, and they were going to take everything. President Danny Rodriguez stood before the largest gathering of different species in galactic history and felt the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. The great assembly hall on Earth had been expanded to hold representatives from over 200 worlds, but the symbolism remained clear to everyone present. Humanity had taken their small blue planet from an ignored backwater world to the capital of a new galactic civilization. The surrender of the Galactic Council was signed 3 days ago, Danny announced to the cheering crowd of delegates who came in every size and shape imaginable. But this war was never about conquest or revenge. It was about freedom and the right of every species to choose their own destiny. In a special section of the assembly hall sat the surviving members of the old Galactic Council, including Zek Nor, who had once arrogantly granted humanity a single planet as if he were giving them a precious gift. The crystal alien watched silently as the species he had dismissed as primitive now addressed the galaxy as its chosen leaders. Admiral Jake Morrison had accepted the position of Defense Secretary for the new Galactic Alliance, and he read from the charter that would govern the liberated galaxy. Every species has the right to govern itself according to its own values and traditions. Every world has the right to choose whether to join our alliance or remain independent under our protection. Every individual has the right to travel freely among the stars and pursue their dreams without fear. The charter was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before because it was based on cooperation instead of domination. The old council had ruled by making species dependent on them for protection and resources. The human alliance offered something revolutionary, which was the chance for everyone to grow stronger together, while remaining free to make their own choices. Dr. Lisa Carter had established the Galactic Science Consortium, where knowledge flowed freely between species instead of being hoarded by those in power. The research stations that had been built throughout Alliance space were producing technological advances that made the Council's secret projects look primitive by comparison. When scientists from hundreds of different worlds worked together, the impossible became possible almost overnight. The Council kept us separated because they knew we would be stronger together, Lisa explained to a gathering of researchers from across the galaxy. They were right to be afraid because when we combine human creativity with Altarian mathematics and vegan engineering and Centauri energy systems, we can solve problems that none of us could handle alone. Colonel Pete Williams was now the head of Galactic Security, and his job was to make sure that no species would ever again face the kind of forced relocation or genocide that the Council had used to maintain control. The Alliance military was not an occupying force, but rather a protection service that kept peace through strength and prevented anyone from oppressing others. "We do not rule over the species that join us," Pete told his officers during a training exercise on the liberated world of Harmony Station. "We serve alongside them to protect the freedom that we all fought to win. The moment we start acting like conquerors is the moment we become no different from the Council we defeated." President Rodriguez met privately with his senior staff in the same room where human leaders had once planned their desperate resistance against impossible odds. Through the windows they could see the bustling spaceport, where ships from hundreds of worlds came and went freely, carrying passengers and cargo and ideas that would have been forbidden under the old system. "Do you ever regret how far we have come?" Dr. Carter asked as she watched a group of young aliens playing in the park with human children. Jake looked out at the construction crews that were putting the finishing touches on the latest addition to Earth's orbital infrastructure. The massive space station would house the new Galactic University, where the next generation of leaders and scientists and explorers from every member species would learn to work together. "They gave us one planet and expected us to be grateful for their generosity," Jake replied. "They thought they were solving the human problem by relocating us somewhere we could not cause trouble. Instead, they freed us from thinking small," Danny added. "They forced us to look beyond our solar system and realize that we were never meant to be limited to just one world or even one species." General Kelly Johnson, who now oversaw the Alliance military academies, had a different perspective on how events had unfolded. "The funny thing is, we probably would have been content to explore slowly and make contact gradually if they had just left us alone. Humans are naturally curious, but we are also naturally cautious about disturbing others." Dr. Carter smiled as she remembered the arrogant crystal alien who had offered humanity a single planet as if it were more than they deserved. "But they did not understand human nature. Tell us we can only have one of something, and we will find a way to have them all. Tell us something is impossible and we will prove you wrong. Try to put us in a cage and we will not only break free, but we will make sure no one else ever gets caged again." The transformation of galactic civilization had happened faster than anyone thought possible. The Council had ruled through fear and scarcity, making species compete against each other for limited resources and opportunities. The Human Alliance governed through hope and abundance, sharing technology and knowledge and opportunities with anyone willing to work for the common good. Construction projects throughout Alliance space were creating infrastructure that would benefit everyone. Trade routes that had been restricted under Council control were now open to all species. Scientific research that had been classified as secret was now available to any world that wanted to use it to improve life for their people. The Council's greatest mistake was underestimating human stubbornness, Jake observed as he watched the news reports of new worlds joining the Alliance every day. "They thought giving us one planet would satisfy us because that is how other species think. They did not realize that humans have never been satisfied with just surviving. We want to thrive, and we want everyone else to have that chance too." Outside the window, the latest group of Council war criminals was being transported to trial in a system that emphasized justice and rehabilitation instead of punishment and revenge. Even former enemies were given the chance to earn redemption by contributing to the new society that was being built on the ashes of their old empire. Zek-Nor had become a symbol of the old way of thinking that had kept the galaxy divided and weak for thousands of years. The Crystal Alien's trial had been broadcast throughout Alliance space, and his conviction for crimes against sentient beings had been unanimous among judges from dozens of different species. "What will happen to prisoners like him?" Danny asked. "They will serve their sentences and then they will be offered the chance to help build the galaxy they tried to destroy," Pete replied. "Some will refuse and spend their lives in comfortable exile. Others will choose to work for redemption and prove that even the worst enemies can become allies given time and patience." The Galactic Alliance was not perfect, and there were still problems to solve and conflicts to resolve. But it was built on principles that gave everyone hope for a better future. The right to be free, the right to grow and learn and explore, the right to work together toward common goals while respecting individual differences. As the sun set over Earth's capital city, Jake thought about the long journey that had brought humanity from one small planet to leadership of a galactic civilization. The aliens had given them one world thinking it would contain them and limit their influence on galactic affairs. Instead, that single planet had become the foundation for something greater than anyone had imagined. The Council had ruled through division and fear, but humans had shown that cooperation and hope were stronger than any weapon or threat. They had given humanity one planet and expected gratitude. Humanity had taken the rest and given it back to everyone who deserved to be free.